Dr. Shuo has been studying Buddhism for about 6 to 7 years, and we are in the same study group. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Luo, and he will tell us something about interesting topic about reincarnation from a neuroscience point of view.
Yeah, hi everyone. Just nice to have you there. Sorry, just I have a pretty crappy webcam, so probably you cannot see me well, but that's fine. So as Film has introduced, I'm studying neurodegenerative disease at UCSF. So I've been interested in the past life topic for a long time. So this is kind of my own personal interest to explore this topic a little bit more. And I would like to share you guys about what I've found from the literature. And all of this has been performed by renowned scientists in the United States. So the topic of the presentation, as you can see, is death, a new start. And usually we believe that death is the end of everything, but really that is the case or not. So today we're going to discuss about that a little bit. So actually, I believe that what we learn from death will transform our life. So here's the outline of the presentation. So the first step, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the death mystery and what does it mean and what the process involved. And secondly, I'm going to present some experimental proof of past lives. So this includes the hypnosis study on the patients and the triggering of the past life memory from the patients, and also the birthmark studies and about its connection to the past life memory. And in the third section, we're going to discuss a little bit about the near-death experience. And I think one interesting thing about the near-death experience is that even if your brain stops functioning, you can still have subjective sensation, so experiences. So, okay, now let's get started. So the first part, the death mystery. So what does death really mean to us? So we know that on Earth, there are so many animals, and these animals, some of animals live for a long time, just like the sponge and the coral. They can live to up to 4,000 years. It's really amazing. But for some other animals, they live very short time, just like a mayfly. The adult form of mayfly only for about 24 hours, and they just made to give rise to the offspring and die. So pretty short life. So human beings were lucky because we can live for on average about 60 to 70 years. So enjoying our beautiful life. But still, regardless of the lifespan, every one of us die. So there's no question about that. If one organism can be born, but it never dies, our Earth will have a big problem. So as you can see, every organism, regardless of its lifespan, we die. So, but what does the death really mean to us? So there are two different scenarios. So as you can imagine, so before I get touched into Buddhism, I'm kind of materialism. So I believe that, there's only mass existing in this world, and spiritual or subjective experience is secondary or byproduct of the mass material world. So in the scenario one, that people believe that when you die, everything ends. So if you look at the definition of death on Wikipedia, it means that death is a permanent, irreversible cessation of all biological functions that sustain a living organism. So this includes your breathing, your heartbeat. So we die, both stop. And after you stop breathing, heart stop functioning, your brain cells, the neuronal cells in your brain is going to start to die. So you have, because they're very sensitive to the hypoxia or loss of oxygen. So when brain dies, we assume that just the person dies and the subjective experience and the consciousness are gone. Everything ends. So this is scenario number one. So in this kind of standards, those breathing, heartbeat, and organ failures, they stop functioning. This kind of things can be measured by equipment, medical equipment. So for the last one, subjective experience and consciousness, unfortunately, they cannot be directly measured by the medical device, but we assume that because this person no longer respond to the environment, so assume that basically its subjective experience just finished, ends. In a scenario number two, actually, that's rebirth. So that doesn't mean the end of everything. It actually means a new start. The consciousness can, in this scenario, can actually exist beyond your body, a physical body, and your life continues in a new organism. So these are two different scenarios. So usually people believe that the only religious people believe in rebirth, because like the Buddhism or Hinduism, they just talk about the reincarnation. So we think that this is kind of a wishful thinking about the life and death, which is not necessarily the case, but is that true? Let's explore it a bit more. So even if before I studied Buddhism, I believe that there should be multiple lives. So this is my logical reasoning. So even if I believe everything is based on material, based on physical world, the spirituality is secondary, is byproduct, but I still believe there should be multiple lives. So this is my reasoning, logical reasoning. So if I or my consciousness was born through a mechanism that is, we don't know the mechanism yet, certainly, but I was born in a living organism in my body. So it means that this mechanism works. And we know that in the universe, now it has so many different possible, different planets, different solar systems similar to our solar system. And you know, the Milky Way contains so many trillions of stars. They have endless possibility of lives there. Even if those lives are not maybe will not follow the same physical rules of the life on our Earth, but the possibility of lives are endless. So if I die, everything ends. Okay, that's fine. My consciousness dissolves and it disappears. But because there's so many possibility of lives in the universe, different space and time, different planets, solar system, through similar mechanism, I can still be born again in another organism, just like I was born this time. So this is my logical reasoning. So why I believe there could be will be more than one lifetime. So just as Voltaire just states, it is not more surprising to be born twice than once. Everything in nature is actually resurrection. So, okay, after this logical reasoning, I'm going to show a little bit more, discuss a little bit more physical rules. I believe that would just predict multiple lives. So one of this kind of basic rule is quantum information conservation. So this rule has been discovered by physicists, quantum mechanical physicists. So the rule states that quantum information cannot be destroyed. So here shows the experimental proof of this theorem. We do not need to go into detail of this experimental proof, but the conclusion is that just even if you change this molecule or some way you use some environmental impact to try to destroy its information, but through some kind of construction, you can find the information of one atom from the neighboring atoms. So the information can never be lost. So it is somewhere, even if it's not in the system, but it could be in the system just around you. So the bottom line that the quantum information can never be lost, can never be destroyed. So it's conserved. So this is actually a very interesting role to me. And because if we think about our subjective experience, our consciousness, so actually our experience, memories, as long as the associated emotions are information by nature. So if we experience something, we feel angry, we feel happy, this is kind of encoded by the electric activities in our brain cells, and which by nature is a kind of information. So the information obtained during our lifetime based on the quantum rules could actually be maintained in quantum bits after our death. So it means that the information will never be gone. So because of this role, some physicists, like Professor Goswami from University of Oregon, they well believe that the soul can go beyond one lifetime. Actually, this is a book. You can search the book on Amazon. It's kind of one of the best-selling books. You can find the book very interesting. So Professor Goswami just discussed about how the soul can exist beyond your physical body. And they actually discussed about the quantum book of living, dying, and reincarnation. So it's interesting. Many physicists believe in reincarnation simply because of one simple rule, quantum information conservation. So this is the viewpoint from physics. So in the next slides, I will discuss about what the biologist think about. But okay, here I come to the second part, the experimental evidence of past lives. So those experiments are primarily conducted by psychologists. And one of these psychologists, his name is Brian Weiss. He got his MD from Yale Medical School in late 1970s. And he then went to the Mount Sinai Medical Center, Miami, and became the head director of the psychiatry department. So Dr. Weiss actually never believes in reincarnation of past lives. Instead, he just believed that just your consciousness will go away when you die. So just the same as most of the scientists. But during his experience, because he treated, as you can see, he performed hypnotic regression therapy on over 4,000 patients when he was head of the psychiatry department there. And during this process, he found out something very unusual. So by the way, Dr. Brian Weiss had a book named Many Lives, Many Masters. So this is also one of the best-selling books. You can find that on Amazon. So what Dr. Weiss found out that just when he was treating patients with kind of a phobia, which is an abnormal kind of a fear of something, like a fear of water, if it was a black room or something like that. So normal treatment won't work. So, but he found out that in this case, by hypnotic regression treatment, he can actually let patients recall something happened earlier in the lifetime. So when the patient recall their early lifetime events that trigger their fear, they usually will just become better, will recover. So one of the patients that just raised Dr. Weiss's attention is Catherine. So Catherine was afraid of choking water, darkness, and being trapped. So he cannot even swallow water when he's afraid of choking. Just really happens. And Catherine also exhibited unusual knowledge of ancient Egypt. So despite her lacking related studies, so this kind of abnormal, unusual things happened on Catherine. So Dr. Weiss just took on to treat Catherine using hypnotic regression. So he found out that just during this hypnotic regression, Catherine recorded some early life events, like what happened to her when she was 3 years old or 5 years old, which is well connected to her fear of water or just in a small dark room. But it was unusual that just in the following hypnotic sessions, because he treated Catherine for multiple times. So Catherine actually recorded something happened apparently not in this modern current world, because for example, in one lifetime, Catherine calls her being a header in Egypt, and that time was about 19th century BC, a long time ago. And Catherine said she died of waterborne disease in that lifetime. And similar to that, Catherine recorded many other lifetimes, including in Egypt, in Netherlands, Spain, Germany. And sometimes she is woman, sometimes she became a man, a soldier. So many lifetimes. So actually in total, she said she has 86 lifetimes, she can recall. But she didn't give all the details of all lifetimes. But for many times, she was born in Egypt. So it means that she might have very tight karmic connection with Egypt, with this country. So one might well believe that. So okay, it's nice to have this kind of I say past life memories, but what if it's only hallucination? Because it could well be that false memory. We know that memory is not that reliable. Sometimes by proper triggering, you can just establish some false memory on that, and you will believe that memory is true. So what if all of these kind of past life memories are false? It could be just imagination. So first, Dr. Weiss did think that way, although this kind of very interesting, but he thinks that, okay, it could be something that totally made up, but not true. But the thing is that Catherine actually displayed some superconscious state during hypnotic regression, which will make Dr. Weiss believe that what Catherine told him is true, not false, not made up. Because let's see what happened to Catherine. So as I mentioned before, Catherine said she has 86 past lives, and not all of them are Earth. Certainly, there's no way for us to prove that point. But what surprising is that Catherine actually revealed Dr. Weiss' private information, which Dr. Weiss had never told anybody except his wife. So, for example, Catherine just told Dr. Weiss about his father and his first son who had passed away because of some disease. That why Dr. Weiss just named his second son as Alex in memorization of his first son. So this is very confidential and private information, which Catherine will have no way to know. But actually, Catherine told Dr. Weiss about his private information, which surprised Dr. Weiss a lot. And secondly, Catherine seems to know the facts that are not accessible to her conscious minds. For example, Catherine, under hypnosis, she can tell that her brother was conceived before the marriage of her parents, and her parents have never told her about that. So, and before she went to the hypnotic regression treatment, she didn't know that. And under hypnosis, she can tell this fact that is impossible for her to know. And also, Catherine was able to tell what doctors discussed about her surgery when she was under the general anesthesia. So we know that when the patient is under general anesthesia, basically you are just unconscious. You're basically like in the deep sleep state. So also that means there's no way for her to know that. But under hypnosis, she can actually recall what this has happened to her, and she can retell what the doctors has said about her surgery, and which has been proved later by Dr. Weiss from her surgeons. So those things are really surprising, because it seems that Catherine was able to know something that is impossible for her to know. So all of this observation just made Dr. Weiss to believe that what Catherine said about her past lives must be true. It cannot be totally made up, because certain Catherine said something that is just impossible for her to know conscious mind. Yeah, so. And so what Catherine just relayed to Dr. Weiss through the hypnotic treatment are the following messages. And some of the messages are really, I think, thought-provoking. I think they are somehow similar to the viewpoint of Buddhism. So the first one is that we're immortal. We're beyond life and death, and beyond space and beyond time. We're the gods, and the gods are us. So this statement is really, I think, really amazing. And similar to what we taught in Buddhism, because the true self is beyond this body and beyond life and death. And the second is that each person has a perfect diamond with thousands of facets. So their job is to clean their facets so that it can reflect light and glow like a rainbow. So this is also like the Buddha taught us, that just everyone is perfect. The only thing you need to do is to basically clear your own just bad emotions or bad habits, and so that your inside or the merit can glow like a rainbow. And the third one is that pure energy exists in the rainbow of light, and that lights possess consciousness and the knowledge. So in this way, there is a knowledge is not through, it's again not through learning, but through the achieving enlightenment. So the fourth one is that people in physical form must feel light by relaxing their minds. So this also kind of stress the importance of just meditating, because when we meditate, you relax, and it will be easier for you to go beyond your physical form and feeling the light. And the fifth one is that there will be many lifetimes to fulfill all of the agreements and or pay all of the debts that are owed. So this is also similar to what Buddha taught us about the karma. So what people you're gonna meet, what kind of life events you're gonna experience are based on your karma, but also based on your own motivation. So all the messages related to Dr. Weiss through Catherine, and this just really astonishing Dr. Weiss a lot. And initially, he's really reluctant to publish all of the things, because he thinks that all of these things are so unusual and will not be accepted by general public and are gonna harm his reputation. But because after so many treatment, he established the trust in Catherine, and he believed that their messages are important. So he decided to write the book, just the one as you see before, the Many Lives, Many Masters. So this is about Dr. Weiss, and his study on hypnosis and its revelation of past life memories. And I'm gonna switch to the second experimental proof. So in this section, I talk about birthmark and congenital birth defects, and they can be connected to the death of past lives. So the study was conducted primarily by Dr. Ian Stevenson. So he's also a trained MD, and he's a professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia. And during his study, during his research at the University of Virginia, Dr. Stevenson collected over 3,000 cases of kids with past life memories. So he just assembled the amazing book called Reincarnation and Biology, and then published that. And that's a really thick book. There are thousands of cases. And I will just present two cases of the people who claim that they have past life memories and how their birthmark or birth defects are connected with past life memories. So in one of the case, the Indian boy with congenital right hand deformation claimed that his finger has been amputated after suffering from a chopping machine injury in his previous life. So Dr. Stevenson was able to find, based on the boy's description, and just ask people around and find his previous life, the person who died from the chopping machine injury, and confirmed what the boy has said about boy's information about the past life people from his doctor. And in the second case, the Indian man just remembers being shot in his previous life, which was confirmed by the medical records of a dead person also. And so for this man, he was born with birthmark body at the front in his chest. And this chest looks like the wound caused by gunshot. And most strikingly, the man claims that he feels pain, a burning pain in the birthmark. So it's not like only like it's kind of a decolorization of his skin, but he actually feels a pain, and it bothers him a lot just in his early lifetime. So, and after he told Dr. Stevenson about his past life story, Dr. Stevenson just found the doctor who treated the dead person for his past life about his gunshot. And here this diagram shows basically the diagram of the gunshot wound of the person who died from gunshot in his past life. So this is kind of correspond with his birthmark, where his birthmark is right on the front chest. So those are only two of the many striking cases of people who have birthmarks, and they claim that they died of some kind of violent events in their past lives. So one thing that people blame about Dr. Stevenson's study is that most of the cases in the reincarnation biology's book were from East Asian countries like Burma, like Sri Lanka, like India. So people say, okay, because the people there in those East Asian countries have kind of a tradition to believe in multiple lives and believe in reincarnation. So this could basically mislead your study, could add some bias towards the people's descriptions. So that's the people's criticism. So to address this criticism, another a collaborator of Dr. Stevenson, his name is Dr. Jim Tucker. So Dr. Jim Tucker also just works at the University of Virginia, and he joined Dr. Stevenson's team because of his interest, and mostly because of his suspicion and doubt about Dr. Stevenson's work. Because although he's very interested in this phenomenon, so he's very he doesn't quite believe what Dr. Stevenson has found. So basically, it's one of the reasons Dr. Tucker joined Dr. Stevenson's team to study this birthmark and past life memory stuff. And actually, after working with Dr. Stevenson, Dr. Tucker started believing in this because he focused mainly on the American kids. Dr. Stevenson focused mainly on the East Asian kids. So he studied, after he studied many American kids who claim that they have past life memories and had birthmark or birth defects. So he found out that about 70% of the cases, so they claim they suffer from violent or unnatural death in their previous lives. And the time frame between the previous and current life is about 16 months on average. So this kind of corresponds to the time you need to just get pregnant and give birth to an individual. So this is what Dr. Tucker has found. And actually, Jim Tucker, if you search on YouTube, Dr. Tucker has many just fascinating talks and seminars talking about his study about past life memories and birthmark. So you can search on YouTube and find that. And the main criticism received by Dr. Tucker is that okay, your cases are good and you present convincing the cases and about the past life memories, but I still don't quite believe that because you do not provide a theory for that, because you don't have a theory to explain why the mind can exist after a body dies. So in response to that, Dr. Tucker said that the quantum mechanics can well provide a theory for the immortality of the mind. So this is maybe kind of a mind burning, but I'll go quickly through the quantum mechanics. So the quantum mechanics basically say that just at the most basic level of the universe, like the small particles, it is just like in electrons or atoms, protons, they occur only when you observe them. So before you observe those kind of most basic particles, they do not exist. They just exist like based on wave function by Schrodinger. So they only exist like a probability wave throughout space and time. So, but when you observe them, it will just collapse or solidify, become a particle. So if you remember, if anyone is good at physics, you'll remember the Einstein's wave particle duality. So every particles on the most basic level, they exist probability or properties of both a particle and a wave. So that is when you observe them, you'll become particle, but if you do not observe them, they will basically exist in the probability wave. So this suggests that when the material world may be derived from your consciousness observation. So it means that when you observe the world around us, they will present the way as it is based on our own karma. So, but if that's the case, we think the brain is the basis or foundation of the consciousness or subjective experience. But if this is true, so even the brain is a product of our own observation. So it means that your mind kind of in some way creates the brain, the material world, including your body, your nervous system, your brain, not the other way around. So if this is true, so the consciousness will not just disappear after the brain dies. So it means that it is not dependent. The mind creates the brain and the material world. If this is true, that even if your body dies, your brain stops functioning, the mind can still exist and continue in the new organism. So this is how the immortality of the mind is achieved. So this is in the reasoning of the study by, as shown before in the beginning of this presentation, I showed the physics of souls, the Dr. Kowalski, and he discussed about how the physicists think about the immortality of mind. So this is the resonation about his study. So, and in addition to Dr. Stevenson and Dr. Tucker, actually there are many more renowned psychiatrists and scientists. They are interested in this kind of past life memories, and they also record many other cases of patients, and they presented their understanding of the topic. So I just give you some, like Dr. Garner Murphy and Gertrude Schmiedler. So they are pretty famous at that time. So they also talk about their understanding about the subject, but all of them believe in the presence or existence of past lives. Okay, and finally, I was just I remember years ago I found a BBC documentary talking about the birthmark and past lives. So this documentary actually talked about the Dr. Jim Tucker's work. So unfortunately, I cannot find the original BBC documentary, but instead I found this, another BBC documentary talking about the birthmark and past life memories. And I think one thing cool about the BBC documentary that it is kind of neutral. It isn't trying to kind of push you to believe something. Instead, it presents some evidence and discuss about what conclusion to draw from this evidence. And he will just basically ask some questions, kind of criticize this theory, and he will present the evidence against or for that. So that's what I like about BBC documentary. And in this, in the BBC documentary I watched several years ago, which I cannot find. So you talk about John McNeil. So John is retired NYC policeman, and he was shot and passed away in 1992 when he tried to stop the robbery in the grocery store. So, and then John was later reborn in his doctor's house. So, and when the boy was about 5 years old, he can start talking about something only his grandpa, which is John, knows, like what John called about this cat as boss, or what has happened to his mother, which is actually John's doctor. So Dr. Tucker just knew this case, and he examined basically this story, and basically wrote that, included this case in his book. One amazing thing about it is that John got shot and passed away in 1992, and the boy who was born in his doctor's house just suffered from a congenital heart problem, and he received heart surgery right after his birth. And when Dr. Tucker knew this, he went to the hospital, who just basically received John McNeil just in his last moment of his life, and also who performed surgery on his son. And he found out that actually the place, the tissue which got just congenital defects in the newborn boy in his heart corresponds to the gunshot, the bullet, the gunshot just John received in 1992. So it means that this is kind of a past life memory, connection past life memory. He got a shot in his heart, which is caused his death, and the congenital heart problem of the newborn boy. So this also, I think, is a very amazing case. And okay, so that's the second part. I talked about some experimental evidence, the case study of the birthmark, birth defects, and about past life memories. And I'm going to the third part about near-death experience. So what will we experience when we die? So eternal darkness or emptiness or something else? So I want to just explore this a little bit, because usually if we believe in materialism, so when your brain dies, so your consciousness should also die, because if consciousness is based on brain, if a brain stops functioning, consciousness should also be gone. But in the near-death experience, I'll talk about this is not the case. So Dr. Raymond Moody, so he studied the near-death experience a lot, and he's one of the representative scientists who devote a lot to this field. So Dr. Moody is a professor at the University of West Georgia, and later he was appointed as chair in the consciousness studies at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So Dr. Moody became interested in the near-death experience in his undergraduate, and he interviewed since then over 1,000 patients with near-death experience, and he found some common unusual components in their statements. So one of the most common just components in the near-death experience is out-of-body experience. So those people who survived the near-death experience either just suffer from severe injury or just very severe sickness. So all of them, most of all of them will say that they have experienced out-of-body experience. They can view their body from another point. And also, once they feel they're out of body, their pain stops. Instead, they feel peace and calm. So no more pains, no more sufferings. And some of them feel that they're moving through quickly through a dark tunnel. And some of them claim that they have a life events review in front of them, like it's just playing a movie. And many of them claim that they see when you are immersed in the strong light. This is a very unusual component. And as long as they touch the light, they feel very strong joy and unconditional love. And also they feel that the kind of boundary between the self and the non-self dissolves, and they feel the whole universe of cosmic unite together, become one. So this is something just in their statements, some unusual or common components in their statements. And one of the most striking component in my mind is the light. So based on the description, the light is very bright, and they have never seen this bright light on Earth. So it's an unearthly brilliance. And even though they are very bright, it doesn't hurt your eyes. You can still see things around, so it doesn't hurt you. And this light seems to have a definite personality, and the light is full of love and warmth. So based on your religious belief, the light could have a different presentation of identifications. So if you are just, for example, a Christian, you feel that this is Jesus, or if you are Buddhism, you feel this is Buddha, or if you are non-religious, you feel that this is someone you worship a lot, or just simply full of love and warmth there. And strikingly, the light can communicate with the dying person in a non-verbal way. So it looks like kind of a psychiatric communication this way, non-verbal, no words. The two most commonly asked questions emerging from this non-verbal communication is that, first, are you prepared to die? So are you ready? Secondly, what have you done to make your life worthwhile? Which will make you start reflect on your own life to think about, okay, have I done anything that is meaningful for me, for other people, for my life? So there are two questions encountered. So regardless of their answer, when these patients survived this near-death experience, so they recovered, if most if not all, they changed their life completely towards life, attitude towards life. So they'll become grateful of the people and the events around them. They become peaceful, no longer just losing temper easily, and they become compassionate, try their best to love the people around and help other people. So change their attitude towards life completely. So that's kind of a very life-changing experience to them. So however, even if so many people have some descriptions or common components of a near-death experience, there's still criticism. For example, one of the most common criticism is that those are really wonderful statements. One of them, light, supernatural communication. But what if they're only simply the hallucination of your dying brain? Because you know that when people die, when the brain is still not completely dead, there's still so many things going on. You have many brain and nerve cell activities. You have this kind of electrical pulses happening on the brain that could well trigger your hallucination. Just like when you take illegal drugs, you are just have something, you feel that you experience something, but which is not true to other people. So to answer this question, Dr. Pania presented his strong evidence. So Dr. Sam Parnia is from the New York University Langone Medical Center, and he's a director of the CPR unit. So actually, he's in charge of a kind of a ICU unit, and there are a lot of patients who suffer from the severe injury or sickness will just receive their treatment there. So based on Dr. Parnia's statement, there are over 2,000 patients that's recruited from this study, and in 15 medical centers across European countries and the United States. So amazingly, so this 2,000 patients, they are just basically at some point they are clinically dead. So basically, because they're severely injured or just sick, so these 2,000 patients, they're clinically dead at some point. But because of the advanced treatment or just say some medicine, they actually recover them from the sickness or injury. And based on their interview, 40% of the patients had a vivid memory of near-death experience. And the most striking point is that 2% of those 2,000 patients, which is about 40 patients, can describe precisely what happened to them when they were clinically dead. So for example, this based on the medical record, where the patient is clinical dead, means no breath, no heartbeat, and the brain function, the EEG stop, there's no activity there, means your brain is dead. So because your brain is dead, there should be no subjective experience, no consciousness exists there. For example, if a patient fits a criteria between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. on a certain day, November, for example, 7th. So the patient should have no knowledge of the things happening during this time span because he's clinical dead, his brain stopped functioning. But the surprising thing is that the patient can actually describe what happened to them during this kind of a dead period. They can describe, okay, I saw that those doctors, those nurses are trying to rescue me, and they apply something to me, something like that. It can give very precise description on what happened to them when they are clinically dead. So this means that actually the consciousness can continue after the brain stops functioning. Means there should be something just behind the consciousness that is not comes from your brain, your physical brain. And then another example is Dr. Eben Alexander. So Dr. Eben Alexander is a Harvard surgeon, neurosurgeon. So Dr. Alexander in 2008, he experienced a severe bacterial meningitis, and he quickly went to deep coma. So, and based on Dr. Alexander's medical record, he released that in 2018 September. And he said that he experienced just basically all of the brains based on the brain scan, all of his brain lobes stop functioning, severely basically infected by bacteria. And the chance of survival based on his doctor is only about lower than 2%. But amazingly, Dr. Eben Alexander recovered from his deep coma. And after his recovery, he described vividly that's what he has experienced during his coma time. So actually he experienced some supernatural scenes. When his cerebral cortex stopped functioning, he saw heavenly beings around him, and also he heard very beautiful music he has never heard on this earth, and he feel that those beings can communicate with him in a nonverbal way, and also he can feel the love, feel all of the positive energy there, just in his heavenly supernatural experiences. So after he recovered, Dr. Alexander actually he quit his job and he started promoting what he believes. He believes that consciousness should exist beyond the physical body, and actually he has his own website and he actually presented it across the nation, and you can easily find his presentation and how he responds to criticisms, critics. Relying on some kind of something, and you can find his response there. That's a very striking scenario there. So together with Dr. Pania's study of the dying patients, so and Dr. Alexander and Dr. Pania, their scenarios say to us that just the consciousness is not simply based on your brain. So even if your brain stops functioning, you can still have a subjective experience of consciousness. So which strongly suggests that consciousness is probably not solely based on your physical brain. So, and let's now look back to the Oriental wisdom. So we know that Western scientists have all this kind of experimental studies about patients have a memory of past life, their birthmark, birth defects of past life memories, and also the near-death experience. But actually in Tibet, many just guru or masters, they have already described this phenomenon a long time ago. So just like the two books I'm going to present here is one book is the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. So it is written by Soja Rinpoche. So Soja Rinpoche has passed into Mahanirvana several years ago. But his book just really, I think, to see attract many readers in Western countries. And his book in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying actually originates from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, also called Bardo Tojo. So this book describes the physiological and mental changes from one's death to rebirth, the whole process. So what will happen to you, what will you see? So when you are dying, what will you feel, and what will you see? And from moment of death all the way to the moment of your rebirth. So the whole process. So, and how to prepare for this process. So, and many of the descriptions are really close to the findings from the near-death research, near-death experience research. And also the second book, just as mentioned, is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, also called the Bardo Tojo. So this book is taught by the Guru Rinpoche, also known as Padmasambhava. So, who is the founder of the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. So, and this book is really striking. So this book is somehow similar to the book of the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, but this is in much more detail. So it describes the every single deity you will see on the specific day. You say there in total about 49 days from the start point of your die and to your rebirth. So they're about 49 days, but some people could have shorter than that. Some people could have longer than that, but the most typical time is 49 days after death before your rebirth. So what you will see on day 1, what you see on day 2, and day 3, and what you will hear. So it's in very detail. So, and this experience also many of the descriptions are highly consistent with the near-death experience research found by other scientists. And this book will basically let you know that what will happen to you exactly after you die, and what you would expect to see and hear. So how should you respond, how prepare for that process. So I think this is a very important. And for example, if we have more than one lifetime, so what should we do to prepare for the next lifetime? So every one of us know how to prepare for the future. We need to plan our study, plan our jobs. So what we should do for the next 5 years, 3-year plan, 5-year plan. But what if we have multiple lives? So we should do something for the next life, right? So that would be the most wise thing for us to do. So this is basically this is all of my presentation, and to this point, I hope you have gained some more or just some understanding about death if you have not thought about death carefully before. So because I talked about the quantum mechanics, the theoretical proof of the immortality of the mind, and also talk about the experimental proof about the immortality of the mind or past lives, or hypnosis, near-death experience, and a birthmark study. And also talk about what Buddhism masters teach about the dying and the living. So I hope you have learned something new. And if you have any questions, we can discuss about that. I'll be happy to do. Okay, thank you very much. That's my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Question from Oliver is that is there a study on for human to human reincarnation time between the death of previous life and the current birth? Yeah, unfortunately, scientists are still not ready to do that. Based on my understanding, I haven't seen death previous life and recurring birth.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking this question is there are the recall of previous life and the process of death, and then being born as a new life. Many of them are quite continuous. and it's short also. Usually the memory of the new life, the new rebirth is started when someone get born. I think also in the case of hypnosis, they recall not the moment, the new life being conceived, but more to get born. I think that gave the people an impression that the reincarnation starts from the moment, like skipped the pregnancy of 10 months and start at the moment of birth. But yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's any study, but yeah, let's watch then in that case.
So in Dr. Brian Weiss' book, Many Lives, Many Masters, he did discuss about the in-between status between this life and the next life. So Catherine, when under hypnosis, she seems to be between the different lives. She seems to be in the limbo state. And during that state, Catherine didn't describe what happened to her during the different lifetimes, right after die, but before her next birth. She didn't discuss about that. But during that time, others higher level spirit seems to attach to Catherine's body, and it's just using Catherine's body to deliver a message to Dr. Weiss. So all of the information I said about were beyond life and death, were immortal, were delivered by this kind of he calls masters, Dr. Weiss calls masters during this limbo state. But Catherine actually didn't describe anything between this Bardo state, in between state. So my thinking is that, including your statement that just people will have memory only just close to the birth, or just not to the early point of the lifetime. So my thinking that just based on Buddha's teaching, so basically those information can be easily get lost if you have no meditation. If you can go into samadhi, you are not just affected by all of the turbulence happen to you. So you might retain the memory just very well, but otherwise you need to use some special methods like going to samadhi by meditation or by deep hypnosis to recall what happened to you during your Bardo states. So that's my understanding. So, but having said that, I think some kids are saying that when they were young, they say that they have some dream connected with the Bardo state, what they will experience during when they die for the previous life, but have not born yet. They will have retain some of the memories when they were young. So that they may come to them as the dreams. They'll keep dreaming the same thing over and over again, which is actually what happened to them during the Bardo state. So that's what I heard. But I don't think scientists have any kind of a good documentation of this kind of a in between lifetimes is memory. I haven't seen things like that.
Yeah, basically, I think as Feng and I often talk in this class, these hypnosis or scientific study, it does good by opening our mind, at least not to that, maybe even stubbornly believe there is no such thing. That should be good enough. It probably don't serve the purpose, does not serve the purpose that completely prove all things are true, given also the fact there's a limitation that scientists guide their study. Right? There was not even emphasized on that part, but I think maybe at some point they will. Anyways, there's some more questions on the screen. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Francina says, thanks a lot, very thorough. Really appreciate the fact that you're trying to present all the related controversies. How open are the mainstream research journals to most of the fields you have discussed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, so for the mainstream journals, they hold different views. Some people believe it. They will just discuss about that. I mean, on top about mainstream scientists. So that's why I discover how many scientists are actually involved in this kind of a study or phenomenon. So, and there's a journal called the Parapsychology, if I remember correctly, Parapsychology. They study this kind of unusual psychological phenomenon from the patients. Some of them study, for example, the telegraph, just like telepathy. Yeah, sure. Sorry. And then this is about the sixth sense communication, just communication using mind without verbal communication. So they probably studied like that. And also there's some study about the reincarnation, which is on the Parapsychology, the journal. I would say that just the physicists are more acceptable to the idea that our mind is immortal. Actually, the quantum mechanics, those physicists they discuss, because of the quantum mechanics and thanks to the theory, many physicists are believe in the future lives or past lives, and they even discuss about what kind of a matter should be the vehicle to carry your memory. For example, is discussed about the microtubes, because they believe the microtubes could carry your memory over different lifetimes. But in my mind, a microtube is also kind of protein. So the protein will degrade and go away. So it should not be the vehicle. They should be, based on my understanding and discussing of some physicists, your memory should exist in quantum field. So this is my field. So I would say that, but as biologists, the neuroscientists, they are not kind of ready to accept this kind of mainstream ideas, because we believe that, as I have been trained, we believe that everything is based on your genes. Yeah, everything, your disease can be explained by your genes, and your biological properties can be explained by your genes and environment, nature and nurture. So, but we don't, many of them, my colleagues won't believe that. But I think young people have a more open mind, because when I talk about these ideas to my friends, when I was in Boston, they are graduate students or just young people, they are more acceptable to these ideas and how the quantum mechanics can be well connected to this life phenomenon. So back to your question, for mainstream research journals, probably not. But for mainstream scientists, yes, many of them are open to this opinion idea. Yeah.
I just want
also,
to.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. All right. So I'm really interested in everything I've been talking about so far, and also I know you are trained. You're a well-trained biologist. Yeah. I can tell from the way that you present all the evidence and their, the opposite end of views. My question to you is, I have tried. I'm also trained as a biologist, but I'm more of an ecologist.
I see.
In my earlier years, I was trying to see if there's any kind of like intersection that we can really use our scientific training to explore this area. But later on, I just cannot give up, because I felt like it's not that we don't have evidence. It's like the scientists are not ready to accept that.
Yes.
When people are young, they are open-minded, but once their job security depends on acceptance of your peers, then they will say one thing in public and they will say another thing in private. So there this huge gap. I think it takes generations to overcome. But so I have probably just one last quick question to you, is that now within your short period of lifetime, and what do you see yourself as a conscious scientist that do want to bring the wisdom from probably far more advanced to the mainstream scientists? So that's just my question.
My short answer is that you need to be rich. So you no longer need the grant money from your NIH or whatever. So you need to be rich, so you can do whatever you want. So you can voice your own opinions. Otherwise, you have to be dependent on the the journal's editors, and how you can get it funded, because that's how we survive. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think seriously, I think if you are rich, just as Bill Gates or whatever, yeah. So you don't really care about what other people think about your research. So I think Dr. Ian Stevenson, he's kind of lucky, because although he got many criticism about his reincarnation study, the birthmark and past life memories, he got a lot of criticism, but he can still stick to that, and he has people support his study. And there are some people that donated money, millions of dollars, to his research institute. So he can actually doesn't have to worry about the funding of his study. So
what about Tucker? Is he more accepted by the NIH?
Tucker is more accepted, because I think Tucker talks more about U.S. American kids.
But can he get funding from NIH?
Oh, I haven't researched into that, but I think probably he gets some funding. Otherwise, he cannot.
I can answer. I have talked to Dr. Tucker actually.
Great.
As he was here, and he's no problem. I think he heard the Virginia. I think is that more established in this study, so I don't think they have a fund issue for the whole team.
All right, thanks.
I'm also a scientist. I'm also relying on NIH funding. So actually, I do know there is it's called alternative medicine. They do funding a lot of mind research. So it's getting more and more open nowadays. I think Ian Stevenson really made great contribution to the field to convince people. But also we all know that biologists how to know that it's only the biology, like the brain function, like generate consciousness, right? But more and more people realize that's not the case. Actually, we don't really have evidence to show the brain is the physical base for the consciousness. It's moving to the right direction. And also, I'd like to mention a paper published on New English Journal of Medicine, Medicine, that the top journal.
Yeah.
Is a Dutch doctor. He was a cardiologist, so he saw a lot of near-death experience. If I remember it right, it's published in early 2000. He had statistic cases to show how many percentage of people have that memory that can, it's like this, like Dr. Luo talked about this Dr. Parnia, exactly like that. He had hundreds of cases of people come back from the defined death, actually clinical death. And then they recollect a lot of information about the death experience. It's published in New England by New England Journal of Biomedicine. Yeah, so it's not bad.
So I would say, to answer Francina's question, I would say that just the physicists and some clinical doctors, they are more acceptable to that. Just like the doctors, they see patients, so they will just change their mind. Like the Dr. Evan Alexander, he was a neurosurgeon at Harvard Medical School, and he never believes in any just this kind of consciousness or immortality of mind. He said he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in any God or something like that. But he totally changed his mind after his experience. So I think doctors will be more acceptable. And also the physicists, like in 2005 and 2015, you can search on Nature. Nature published two articles, 2005, that called The Mental Universe. I believe that's written by Richard Henry. So from the Johns Hopkins University. So that's in memory of Einstein's magical year. This is a century of past 1905, when Einstein just made three fundamental discoveries that just changed the whole modern physics. So he wrote the short essay called the Mental Universe. He said the real reality, the only reality, is your mind and the observation. That published in Nature in 2005. And 2015, Nature published another essay called What is Really Real? talking about the quantum mechanics, how to define reality, what is real, well, what is boundary between the objectivity and the subjectivity. So also, I think those mainstream scientists and the journal are start taking pay attention to that. But I would say for the biologists, there may be still a longer way to go. Yeah, maybe because of their preconceptions, bias, something like that, or because of their training. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kate had a question about chronic. She says, by way of thinking about reincarnation in relation to injuries from past lives, does the same apply to chronic illness in the present life? And also, Francina has a question about the pain study. Let's go one by one. Kate's question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kate question. So basically, based on what I've read and what I've seen, so for people more likely to have this kind of a birthmark or congenital defects when they suffer from kind of unnatural and a violent death in the previous life. So certainly, Dr. Jim Tucker and Ian Stephenson's book on reincarnation in biology is one example. Another one is his name, the guy's name is called Edgar Cayce. So Edgar Cayce was born in late 19th century and he passed away, I believe, in mid-1950s. So he also had kind of psychic power to basically tell people's previous life and basically treat people's curable disease. So you can find out what happened to that person in his or her past lives, what caused that illness. So connect the previous life events to his current condition and provide treatment for that. And I know at that time, so he raised a lot of attention in the mainstream media. So if you search Edgar Cayce, so you'll find him. So he also talked something about Atlantis, about the so kind of legendary country or just empire which disappeared overnight. So based on this study, I would say for chronic illness or disease, you may still have a memory of that, but because that's not as because compared to those more violent events, the possibility to induce this kind of birthmarks are much less likely. And by the way, I think because based on Buddhism, everything is your reflection of your mind. If your mind have a very strong impression of something, there'll be more likely for your mind to create this kind of body or birthmark. That's my understanding. Yeah.
And Francina, could you clarify your question about pain study?
Right. When I wrote this is when you were talking about NIH funding. So I was wondering, because it's such a trendy thing to study pain.
Yes.
Because of the. So I wonder if that can somehow give us a chance to talk about, either past life or divine intervention or something like that.
It's quite unlikely, I would think. We cannot go that direction. You can go study epidemiology of pain, how prevalent it is, what kind of treatment people receive nowadays is this abuse of opioid pandemics, and that's why the pain study is so popular. They want to find alternative treatment, but actually I really think the psychology, the mindfulness treatment will be useful. I have some sort of intention to move into that direction. I study cancer, and I study epidemiology and molecular biology, all that. But it is, if I want to make the move, it's going to not going to be easy, but I do want to give it a try.
Yes, very interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah, just I heard that the Harvard psychologist, his name is Ellen Langer. So she studied what it made her famous is the study called a counterclockwise study. So in late 1970s, so she brought two group of elder people into the retreat in New Hampshire. So basically, she just asked the two groups of elder people. One group basically you deduct what happened to you 20 years ago. So basically talking about your past memories. The second group, elder people, they just behave as if they were 20 years younger. So they were dressed like when they in the 1950s, listen to music from the 1950s, and basically behave as if you were 20 years younger. Actually, after the retreat, so the experimental group compared with control group, so they have younger in the physiological kind of indicators like your short-term memory, agility, things like that. And
sorry, I missed part of your description. So what made them younger? Meditation?
No, they just mentally believe that they were 20 years younger. So even if you are, for example, those people are average.
By what? The treatment of brainwashing?
No, not brainwash. Just make you believe that you were 20 years younger. So you behave like you were 20 years younger. So 20 years ago, well, what kind of music did you listen? And what kind of dresses you were going to dress? So you behave like you were exactly 20 years ago. So like an actor playing, and mentally believe that we were 20 years younger. So that's some mental effects there.
All right, that's the beginning. Then what? Then
so that basically talk about the power of mind. So because I talk about this, because she also studied something about placebo and nocebo, the pain effects. So your mind can make you feel more pain or less pain. So that's the key point. So it means mind plays a role there. And I think that's could be because if I mentioned about the just she want to move into kind of pain study, if I heard correctly. So I mentioned, I think this is something, some interesting direction you can move, how your mind can control your physiological reaction to pain or outside stimulus. So that's my point. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I have one comment back to Kate's question about chronic disease. I read somewhere, I don't remember, was also hypnotic regression, and there was the treatment. The doctor is trying to treat a woman who, like, whenever she sees food she wants to eat, she just couldn't control herself. So of course the consequences, she's overly like obese. And then she went to the psychologist for the treatment and find out in the hypnosis process and found out she died of hunger in the previous life. So, but once she find out the reason and she can control herself, she quickly lost her weight and become a very, very normal person. So if you think that the eating habit is a kind of a chronic condition, I think a lot of chronic disease kind of probably also related to previous life. And in Buddhism, we call it karma, right?
Mm. Yes, I think that's a good example. Yeah. I think it'll be great.
I just want to make a comment. Can I just make a comment? All right. So you mentioned something from past life. Of course, some people just die hard don't believe that. But I have a friend, well, she's pretty spiritual and she's white, right? And she told me, she said, I reincarnated within my lifetime. So basically she said, I was much more materialistic when I was younger, was mean and all that. And somehow I changed, I'm now a better person. So is there any way, let's say, scientists in our group, instead of saying reincarnation, people just don't believe, but study some life-changing events, and maybe just you go through a near-death experience or something like that, and then you totally change your mindset and your belief, and then that will lead to maybe a cure of disease or a change of a mindset and something like that. But it has to be very narrowly focused. I felt like since it's verifiable, right? You can have probably still need to have access to large a number of medical record. I don't know how we get there because we have a privacy issue. But if someone like in the Dutch doctor, like, they have access because it's much open, like a more open society in that country, and they're more shared, they have more shared resources, and maybe something like that. I'm just like throwing this idea out. That's it.
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
a good idea. Yeah.
Yes, right. I think the doctors, they have more access to those patient records, so they are just in some sense are basically have their own advantage. That's also one reason why clinical doctors are more likely to accept those ideas, because they have firsthand evidence for that. Just like Dr. Weiss, Dr. Weiss also said, yeah, he doesn't believe in income God, things like that, or mentality, because he graduated from Yale Medical School and were formally trained, maybe too well trained. So basically, he doesn't believe in any kind of spirituality, but he totally changed his mind after he treated Catherine as his patients. So I think these are also kind of part of life-changing events. Yeah, I believe that if more scientists will have more access to those records, they may find something unusual and change their mind too, especially for people, because now more and more scientists are working in the medical center, medical school. So even if they are not clinical doctors, but they still have the opportunity to talk to doctors who can just see this kind of patients, this case studies, I think. Yeah. This is maybe a slow process, but I believe this is gonna change over time. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions?
So Kat said that just lost connection, but when I logged in, I heard the end of a statement regarding chronic illness and karma.
Oh.
So that's maybe kind of with a previous question about whether the chronic illness just can cause this kind of a, because we talk about many more severe, more violent events about the unnatural death, gunshot or some violent death. So for chronic illness, chronic illness.
You're breaking up.
I'm
wondering, everyone else, can you hear?
Yeah.
Examples. I think that's likely because.
Okay. Dr. Luo, your connection is not very stable.
Yeah, Dr. Luo breaking up also.
Now it's fine, right? Because
yes.
could be my internet. Okay. Okay, can you hear now? Basically, yes. the point is that the chronic illness, because they may not be as violent as those more gunshot unnatural death, so they might not cast that much impression in your mind when you are reborn. So karma, that's my interpretation. Consciousness, yeah, touches question that yes, let me see. It's hard to keep track. It can be caused by multiple factors. Yes, that's right. Thanks, Francina, for sharing this. For Tasha's question, what is consciousness? Yeah, short answer is that we don't know. It's hard to define. Yeah, and whereas for the neuroscientists, we're studying which part of the brain is responsible for your consciousness. But actually, based on Freud's mind model, so there are different levels of consciousness: the consciousness, subconsciousness, and unconsciousness. So our consciousness we're studying is only about the most superficial one in the neuroscience field, not even touching the unconsciousness and the subconsciousness. But there's based on current understanding, there are literature saying that the part of brain right on the the occipital and this is called a occipital and a temporal lobe, and So the three lobes intersection point, this part of brain is responsible for your consciousness. I mean only the sixth sense, not the subconsciousness or unconsciousness. Yeah. Yeah, some people say that the consciousness have some weight. Yeah, if consciousness is a kind of energy based on Einstein's energy mass equation, so the energy should have some weight there. I will not be surprised about that. But based on my recollection, so when there was a faculty interview, talk seminar when I was in Boston, so the faculty candidate, he is studying worms, C. elegans. So he talked about that he used the live imaging to study the worm aging. Light fleeing away from the worm body. So he's kind of joking that, oh, is that kind of soul of the worm. So this is very striking because, there's done some medical study, some camera or some infrared recording showing that the dying people will have some light leaving their body when they actually die. So I don't know what this is actually the soul of the animal, yeah, of the organism. I don't know, but so superficial. Yeah, I agree. The scientific understanding of consciousness is very superficial, and maybe will be superficial forever, because the ultimate understanding of consciousness need to break the boundary between the subjectivity and objectivity, and that's something science can never be done, because science assumes that the outside world is objective, and what can describe the objective world just precisely. That's what science believes, but based on Buddha's teaching, the objectivity and subjectivity is only an illusion. This is also consistent with quantum mechanics. So I think science might never get to that high. Yeah. The practice meditation, as long as you reach enlightenment, you will know everything. So I think that'll be ultimate answer. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, because science is based on the objectivity and subjectivity. Yeah. So that's why quantum mechanics is so brain burning. Many people are still very reluctant to accept that. The many genius like Einstein, he also doesn't quite believe in quantum entanglement. Yeah, but he's wrong, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So that's because for Tasha's question, will the development of quantum physics cause physics to return to the realm of consciousness and spirit? That's totally possible, and that's why there's so many books from quantum physics. It's about your spirit and mind. It's just like the physics of the soul, the book I put on the front of the beginning of the presentation. So they do believe that. And even the Max Planck, the father of quantum mechanics, he also stated that before everything behind our observation, there is an intelligent mind consciousness. So he also kind of believes that your observation, conscious observation, creates this material world. Yeah. I think the time will come sooner or later. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just like the Francis said, feels that we get closer to the truth is further beyond words, beyond verbal description. Yeah, that's right. This is very close to Zen tradition. Yeah, the Zen tradition is everything. When you get to that point, enlightenment point, is beyond the words and beyond description, beyond your thoughts and anything. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, and enjoying discussing with you. And thanks so much for the hosts, Fan and Oliver, for tonight's section.
I do have a question though.
Yeah.
So when you said, let's see, I made my notes. When you said that the consciousness is not dependent on the physical brain, right? So that with all those near-death experience, that means the consciousness can exist on its own. Is that right? And then in that case, what does our brain do?
Yeah, my interpretation is that because of your attachment to the body, so the brain, when you do something to a brain, you will still respond. But there are also people, the cases, medical cases or brainless people, they have very thin cortex and a very tiny amount of cerebral cortex. So, but they still have perfect functioning biological function, the consciousness function. So, which argue against the brain as critical part of your consciousness. So, yeah, I think people will just understand that more. I think our attachment to the body causes to appear that the brain is indispensable. So I think that is my interpretation.
Sounds right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
So
great.
Kate, did you get your questions answered about chronic disease conditions? Okay, great. All right. If there is no more questions, this is your last chance. So we'd like to really thank Dr. Shuo Luo for sharing all those beyond my conceptual mind idea about quantum physics and how consciousness work and how the possible mechanism of reincarnation. I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you, Dr. Luo.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Dr. Luo.
thanks for everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks
everyone.
for hosting.
Thank you, everyone,
And
for participating.
Thanks.
yeah, and have a great night. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great night. Thank you.
We have completed today's session. Thank you. We'll see you next time.